injuring 3 people in what police describe as an intentional act. Pope Francis called on countries around the world to ensure COVID-19 vaccines are made available to those most in need of them. In India, rural workers hold 29 days of protest to demand the repeal of agricultural laws approved in September by the national government. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. This Friday, a motorhome exploded in downtown Nashville, injuring 3 people in what police describe as an intentional act. The blast in the southern U.S. city left buildings and the road surface charred, as well as glass, tree branches, and bricks strewn across the street in an area filled with businesses, restaurants, and bars. In a dramatic sequence of events, the shattered Christmas Day early morning police responded to calls that gunshots had been fired and arrived on the scene before the vehicle erupted in flames. Police spokesperson Don Aaron said their attention had been drawn to the suspicious RRV in time for a bomb squad to clear the area before the explosion. The spokesperson also said that several people had been moved to a local station for questioning, although no arrests or details of suspects were announced. The FBI said it's taking the lead in the investigation.
Explosion was significant, as you can see from the street there on 2nd Avenue. Now, the police department, its federal partners, the FBI, ATF, are conducting a large-scale investigation to this point. We do believe that the explosion was an intentional act placed throughout the day. Our police officers, with the assistance of the Tennessee Highway Patrol, are conducting a shutdown, if you will, of the downtown area while we assess this entire situation. So traffic in the downtown area from the interstate system, really, and in the immediate downtown area is going to be restricted as our teams attempt to assess exactly what's taken place, who may be involved, etc.
People arriving in the United States from the United Kingdom will be required to submit a COVID-19 test that is negative due to a new strain of coronavirus detected in that country. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued a statement detailing that the test must be taken in the last 72 hours before the departure from the United Kingdom to the United States. The decree, signed by President Donald Trump, will come into effect on Monday, December 28. For the moment, there is no evidence that the new variant of the coronavirus has any impact on the severity of the symptoms, the death rate, the response of the antibodies, and the effectiveness of the vaccines. And Donald Trump claimed he was working tirelessly for the American people, with a schedule that included many meetings and calls, and then went to his golf club in West Palm Beach, Florida. In Washington, a Democratic proposal to increase direct payments to Americans under the COVID relief bill from $600 to $2,000 was blocked. The increase was Trump's own demand in a surprise video address on Tuesday night, but it was shut down by Republicans who opposed greater spending throughout stimulus talks. Should the relief bill fail, millions of Americans will be without desperately needed relief at least until President-elect Joe Biden takes office in January. The House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, said Democrats will try again on Monday. Energy Innovations CEO Hal Harvey, the U.S. will step up its commitment to eliminating carbon dioxide when President-elect Joe Biden takes office.
It's my opinion that Trump was a disaster on the environment. However, he was not very careful. And so almost every action he took can be reversed very quickly. So I think we will be back on track. I think we can think of this as 4 lost years, but we will recover. In the meantime, most energy and climate policy is decided state by state, and the states have very strong energy and climate policies. And then clean energy technology is getting cheaper. So we have actually made a lot of progress, even though we did not have any help from Washington. Most important way to think about energy and climate policy is sector by sector. So the easiest, fastest, and cheapest sector to reduce carbon to eliminate carbon is the electricity grid. And there are now many, many U.S. utilities who are shutting down their coal plants and switching to solar and wind, and also geothermal and hydro and so forth. So there are commitments from many utilities to eliminate carbon dioxide altogether by 2035. And this is also the goal that President-elect Biden campaigned on. The next challenge is electric vehicles. If you have zero carbon electricity and an electric vehicle, then you have zero carbon transportation. And here there is what I would call a very healthy race between China and the United States. New vehicles, more and more of them sold are electric. In California, they will not allow an internal combustion engine to be sold after 2035. I think China has something like a 60% EV sales by 2030.
And Brazil received a shipment of 5.5 million doses of Chinese COVID-19 vaccines, raising the total doses of the CoronaVac vaccine in the country to 10.8 million. The nation's state-run Butantan Institute on Wednesday announced that the CoronaVac vaccine developed by the private Chinese laboratory Sinovac Life Science achieved the levels of efficacy required by the World Health Organization in trials with 13,000 Brazilian volunteers. The state signed a contract with Sinovac Life Science in June to develop the CoronaVac vaccine at the Butantan Institute, the main suppliers of vaccines for the Brazilian Ministry of Health and the largest flu vaccine manufacturer in the Southern Hemisphere. Mexican health authorities reported 24 adverse reactions to the COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer. Undersecretary of Prevention and Health Promotion Hugo López-Gatell reported that the symptoms were decreased respiratory activity, low blood sugar levels, dizziness, laryngeal spasm, myalgia, arthralgia, and fever. However, the official explained that the reactions can be a natural immune response to the body. López-Gatell considered that some of these symptoms occurred because many people came to get the vaccine without having breakfast, so he recommended to eat before going to the immunization center. International organizations assured that Latin America and the Caribbean are experiencing the worst economic crisis in 120 years due to the pandemic. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said that the region will end 2020 with a 7.7% drop in gross domestic product, a projection previously announced by the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. The organization's reasoning refers to the economic consequences of the pandemic's impact on this sector, marked by social inequality. ECLAC projected a significant growth of at least 10.7% in unemployment rate this year. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con reportajes teleSUR.
Saturdays. Only on teleSUR. Who's moving the chess man? What interests and motivate the actors behind each event? What's at stake? Critical Move investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. Pope Francis used his Urbi et Orbi Christmas Day address to call on countries around the world to ensure COVID-19 vaccines are made available to those most in need of them.
Today, in this time of darkness and uncertainties for the pandemic, several lights of hope are appearing as the discoveries of vaccines. However, for those lights to lighten and bring hope to the whole world, they must be made available to everybody. We cannot allow that isolated nationalism forbid us to live as the true human family that we are. And we cannot allow the radical individualism virus to win above us and to make us indifferent to the sufferings of our brothers and sisters. I cannot put my own self ahead of others, putting market laws and inventions patents above the laws of love and health of humanity. I pray for all those in charge of nations, companies, international organizations, to promote cooperation and not competition and look for a solution for everybody. Vaccines for everybody, especially for the most vulnerable and needy ones, in every region of the planet. At the first place, the most vulnerable and needed ones.
In the United Kingdom, an outbreak of coronavirus was detected this Friday among the staff of the major British laboratory. The new cases were detected in the administrative staff and warehouse workers of 3 of the 4 scientific teams of the largest British laboratory in charge of testing for the virus. So far, the total number of affected people is unknown. However, currently 20 of the 70 workers remain isolated. Authorities of the institution estimate that the infections could be due to repeated violations of safety rules by the laboratory in order to respond to the growing demand and perform about 70,000 coronavirus tests per day. Ambassadors from the European Union's 27 nations convene on Christmas Day to start evaluating the free trade deal the bloc struck with former member Britain, a historic accord that takes effect in just a week. At Friday's exceptional meeting, the EU delegations asked for more time to study the text before sending them to lawmakers at the European Parliament. The ambassadors are expected to meet again on Monday. Both sides claim the 2,000-page agreement protects their cherished goals. Britain said it gives the UK control over its money, borders, laws and fishing grounds, while the European Union said it protects its single market and contains safeguards to ensure that Britain does not unfairly undercut the bloc's standards. On Friday, China refuted the groundless claims made by the United States that the Chinese distant water fishing industry is using forced labor, saying it is a completely malicious smear and attack.
As a responsible fishery country, China attaches great importance to the scientific conservation and sustainable use of fishery resources and actively fulfills its international obligations. China has established a sound system for managing distant water fishery, implemented the strictest measures for monitoring the positions of fishing vessels in the world, and imposed fishing bans on the high seas in the Southeast Pacific and the Southwest Atlantic. Referring to the international practices of distant water fishery, Chinese distant water fishery enterprises have independently established labor cooperation with some countries in a market-oriented manner, achieving mutual benefits and win-win results. There is no such thing as forced labor. China has maintained good communication with competent authorities of relevant countries on the establishment of bilateral fishery labor cooperation mechanism. We are firmly opposed to malicious, groundless and confounding smears and attacks.
The COVID-19 pandemic, which caused income decline and city lockdown in European countries, will trigger a €30 billion drop in Christmas spending in the United Kingdom, Germany and France. As the top holiday spender, the UK will see its Christmas retail sales dip to €80.9 billion from €91.5 billion last year. Spending in brick and mortar stores is also expected to plunge 37%. Germany, which is the second largest market on Christmas spending, will witness a €4.6 billion plunge this year due to the lockdown measures. And France is expected to see the biggest drop in Christmas spending among the top 3 countries, with a slump of €13.2 billion after it reintroduced a lockdown on early November to curb the spread of COVID-19. Russian volunteers Dressed in Father Frost costumes, abseiled down the slides of a Moscow Children's Hospital on Friday to wish the young patients inside a Happy New Year. Several dozen Father Frost, Russia's version of Father Christmas, and a snow maiden in the cherry picker of a crane appeared on the windows of Morozov Hospital, bringing children some festive cheer during the holiday period. 5 Moscow hospitals took part in a charity program called New Year Tree of Kindness that include festive shows and 6,000 presents for children.
So joyful, everyone was so happy. They are all smiling and waving their hands. They are good girls and boys. I wish that all our patients, all our children and their parents stay healthy in the upcoming year. I hope we forget as soon as possible about all the worst things that happened this year. I wish that all your dreams come true.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In India, rural workers hold 29 days of protest to demand the repeal of agricultural laws approved in September by the national government. Farmers continue street actions against the political reform package, which, according to rural worker leaders, benefits only the big corporations. Farm workers point out that the legislation undermines the procurement system at a time when there are price increases in supplies needed for production. This Friday, farmers engaged in several clashes with the Uddam district police, who seek to lift the roadblocks. In this regard, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged farmers to stop the protests against the package of reforms enacted by the government. The Prime Minister affirmed that the demonstrations are politically motivated. It should be noted that despite 6 rounds of talks, rural workers say these laws threaten their livelihoods. And this Friday, Malian opposition leader Soumaïla Cisse died of COVID-19 in Paris. The news throws Malian politics into new uncertainty. Cisse was the runner-up in the past 3 presidential elections and was considered to be a major candidate to finally win in 2022. He was taken hostage in March while campaigning for legislative elections in his hometown of Niafouké in northern Mali by a group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. Amid public pressure, the Malian government obtained his release, along with that of French and Italian hostages, in exchange for freeing some 200 jihadists from Malian prisons. Syrian Army air defense units repelled an Israeli airstrike against the Misaf region, located in Hama province. At exactly 12:40 local time, Israeli forces launched a missile blast from the north of the Lebanese city of Tripoli towards the Misaf area. Syrian defense systems intercepted and shot down most of the missiles. Since the beginning of the conflict in Syria in 2011, Israeli bombings against military or civilian targets in the Levantine country are plentiful. And Japan is experiencing a sharp resurgence in COVID-19 cases as the nation continues to register daily record numbers of infections. Japan reported more than 3,700 COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours, bringing the country's total tally to over 211,000, with a death toll going beyond 3,100. The capital, Tokyo, reported 888 new cases on Thursday, breaking the previous record of 821 logged on December 17. Near Tokyo are 3 prefectures breaking the daily records, with Kanawama reported nearly 500 cases, Saitama registering 251, and Chiba confirming 234. In addition to the capital region, newly reported infections in Aichi and Kyoto prefectures also saw record high.
Until vaccination starts, medical readiness needs to survive these hard times, so that necessitates a quiet and calm holiday period. I would like you to spend a quiet time with your family and loved ones, with a small number of people. From Pfizer on the 18th of December, there was a submission process for approval and 2 inoculations ended for domestic clinical trial. By February next year, the data will be requested. Based on such data, there will be a screening and review process, and once approval is given, healthcare professionals will be given priority, then the elderly and people with underlying conditions, and then health workers will be prioritized and be inoculated free of charge and will be covered by the state.
And we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find this and many more stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.